Let's not beat around the bush today. Sony have been making some very interesting and perhaps questionable decisions lately, ones that have got them a bit of notoriety. Their stance on things like crossplay, their Japanese developers, and generations is frustratingly inconsistent. In fact, they basically seem like they flip-flop on their philosophies based on whatever suits them in the moment. You could say it's acting on a cynical whim. You could maybe say it's hypocrisy. Sony, though, are very clearly aware that they hold all the cards going into this generation, as they did during the last one, and it seems like a bit of overconfidence has made them a dangerous mix of, well, complacent and a little bit exploitative. So, what's the deal? What's going on? Sony's decision-making in recent years has been driven by what suits them. And obviously, that makes a lot of sense. They're a big company, right? They're always going to make their decisions based on their own interests. What a surprise. But it's perhaps their willingness to walk back on things that's a bit worrying, a bit concerning for people. I mean, if you're a customer and you're buying into something, you've got to be able to believe the company. Have a reasonable expectation that your purchase makes sense. Take crossplay. It's fast becoming an industry standard, but Sony will not shed their reluctance. Except when they can get something out of it. Something called money by cutting a deal with the publisher. The issue with crossplay from a business standpoint is that it's an entirely player-centric thing, right? Platform holders don't get a lot out of it, save having happier players and some positive public relations. But that's not good enough for Sony. They would rather just have the money. And they get it. It was recently confirmed that Sony charge developers and publishers a fee in order to enable crossplay. And the thing is, they're the only ones who do this. It's a bad look. Borderlands 3 was getting crossplay in an update, but not on PlayStation. Sony are just happy to leave them isolated. Destiny 2's crossplay beta, though, does include PlayStation consoles. And that's the thing. Sony's approach here makes it impossible to predict what's going to happen next. So if you have PC gaming friends, well, buying on Sony's platform for a multiplayer thing is pretty much rolling the dice on whether you can play a game with your friends or not. It's not the case for Xbox, who thus far have said they're pro crossplay and have stuck to their ideals. And Sony weren't always like this. In the past, they were far more liberal with things. Portal 2 had crossplay with PC in 2011. FF14 had it on PS3, 4, and 5 since 2013. In fact, Final Fantasy XI was the first game to have crossplay as we know it, between PS2 and PC. That principle, once industry-leading, has been abandoned for financial gain. They aren't upfront about it, of course, no. They act like snakes. This is all backroom deals. And the snake-like behavior is because they're the incumbent. If they open up, all they can do is lose. With Minecraft and Fortnite, they even used a weak protect the children defense initially. And then they publicly relented, bowing to the pressure, listening to their fans. Oh, they were so good, except that, as we now know, they didn't really do that. They just used all of that to secretly make some money from their fans' demands. Because they used all of that audience clamor about wanting crossplay for Fortnite and Minecraft just as a way to leverage that to ask for money from the publishers. And it worked. Oh yeah, and also, think of the kids conveniently stopped mattering. So yes, their think of the kids argument stopped mattering once they got paid. And it's not just that Sony are willing to walk back on a policy in search of an opportunistic buck, it's also their genuine promises. When the PlayStation 5 was announced last year, Sony made a big deal about how they believe in generations. Yes, the generation! And that was a big contrast to what Microsoft were doing at the time with the Xbox Series X and S, where they were very cross-gen. The PS5 reveal showed off all kinds of shiny new games, things like Ratchet that could only work with a new SSD, and they were promising players that next gen was a reality, and the PS5 was true, uncompromised next gen. That's what they sold it on. A year later, of course, they've quietly confirmed that's not true. In a recent interview with Herman Hulst, it was revealed that Gran Turismo 7 and God of War Ragnarok are not PS5 exclusives. They're also PS4 games. Add in Horizon, and actually the bulk of Sony's first-party slate suddenly is releasing cross-generation. Holst later confirmed that Sony actually specifically time their PC releases so as to maximize audience appeal, which is of course why Days Gone recently got another crack of it. Presumably that thinking also applies to their new love of cross-gen as well. Sony are firm believers in generations and platform exclusivity, until it suddenly pays them not to be. So the question then is, are they liars? Are they just opportunists? Well, look, it's hard to scoff at 110 million install base. Selling products is their business. And I actually do agree with a whole bunch of cross-gen, actually. For me, though, it's just absolutely vile when you sell your new product based on a promise that you heavily market that you have no intention to actually make good on. And that's the thing, Ratchet and Clank can only work in the new PS5 because of the unique SSD tech in the new consoles. Its mechanics would not work in a PS4. The other games? Well yeah, faster loads is awesome, but it's not core to their design, so they can work cross-gen. I fully support that, and it's great for the PS4 players. I am pro that. But it is their relationship with the truth, their communications, that is the thing that we gotta look at. Then, on top of this wavering commitment to generations, well, Sony have also got a problem with legacy content. Until money is involved. The store closures that they announced back in March, for example. The PSP, PS3, and Vita stores were going to be shut down so that they could focus on new things. The decision was really a game preservation nightmare, and it did spark enough uproar that Sony eventually did walk it back. They walked most of it back because the PSP store is actually still set to close as planned, and while the PS3 and PS Vita stores will remain open, no new digital content will release on the Vita from the summer. Remember, there are actually still, and this did surprise me, but there are actually still active Vita developers who have had to cancel projects as a result of this, and a thriving community of players who are still rightly upset. All those concerns over resources and challenges to the stores sure did disappear once sales started to spike up, but they're still happy to throw the Vita under the bus, which is very unfortunate for the players. Speaking of which, for the players is their motto. But it really should be for the most profitable players. I think that would work a bit better, a bit closer to reality. And let's not forget how they've treated their home market as well. Sony Japan are legendary. They are known for their work on, let's see, Bloodborne, Demon's Souls, and Shadow of the Colossus. And of course, they've been the backbone of Sony's entire lineup in the past. Without these guys, there's really no PlayStation as we know it. But apparently, it wasn't making enough money to stay viable. After bleeding a bunch of their veteran staff recently, the studio was reshuffled into Team Asobi. This is to help them focus on a single vision and build on the success of Astro. And to be fair, Astro's Playroom is actually an exceptional platformer, it really is. But one day they cut the studio like they're nothing, and the next day they're celebrating Asobi. It just looks odd, especially with the extra context here. Their seeming abandonment of Japan. Internally and externally, Sony have seemed to have stopped caring. That's what it had looked like for a long time, but then Herman Hulst comes in and says that Sony are very excited for the future of PlayStation games in Asia. But then, if what he says is true, why did they cut loose Sony Japan and tank their reputation in their own home country in the first place, if what Herman said means anything? Seems like Sony just sort of make this up as they go along. It's weird. Team Asobi are a good example, and Bend Studio is another. They're working on an entirely new IP that builds on the open world systems from Days Gone, but not a sequel to Days Gone. Do Sony consider Days Gone to be a success? Well, it is Bend Studios' highest selling game, and Sony obviously saw enough value in it to release it on PC. But if all of that is true, then why not greenlight a sequel or something? That's the weird thing for a bunch of people who really like Days Gone, and there are people who really like it. Honestly, I would actually rather have Bend work at a new IP because I just don't care for zombies. So perhaps whatever their new thing is, big and exciting. Who knows? But I think here it's just that Sony have got some inconsistent, unpredictable, and sometimes quite cynically money-motivated decisions going on. It's the kind of behavior that arises from being in a position of supremacy for so long. Sony dominated the last console generation, and while the PS5 sales are anything to go by, they are well on their way to doing extremely well in this generation as well. So Sony knows that they hold all the cards right now, and that confidence has made them complacent. And worst of all, perhaps willing to manipulate their captive audience by, dangling a promise in front of them with one hand and pulling the rug out from under them with the other. I mean, was it responsible to show off God of War in the way that they did? A lot of people gave them kickback for that. At the same time, then, their collective lack of a backbone seems to mean they'll just make whatever decision benefits them the most, which actually does make it really easy to analyze Sony as a company. And this stuff is obviously working. It's getting results for Sony. And with them being so big, they don't really need to care about the bad PR because they feel like they've got a dominant market position. So I guess the best that we can hope for is that they do this stuff and maybe Microsoft is good competition, Sony are forced to be better. Oh, by the way, I love my PS5. It's an incredible console. Great controller, love the haptic stuff, and goddamn, the games on it are brilliant. But that's just my feelings and my personal experience as a customer. And I'm glad for me that it's a good one. But we've got to remove ourselves from our personal experience sometimes just for a minute and actually have a look at the situation at hand. And I think that's what it's like for Sony. What can Sony do to make right in all this? Well, I think it's really quite simple. Act a little bit more open, a little bit more friendly. I think do that and actually things will be pretty good. Open up crossplay. Do those things that people, want to see. They can get a win. It's just, why do that? When you can say, hey, publisher, whole bunch of players want crossplay. We're not going to give it to you for free. Cough up. And it works. It works. And as long as it works, it will continue. Okay. That's it for me. I don't have anything else to end this one on. Have a great day. You can watch some other videos in the channel if you want to help out. There's also the Patreon, all that good stuff. Hope you enjoyed it. Thanks for watching. I'll see you next time.